I guess we have discussed about jobs and cron jobs yesterday, and we have seen like how you can write your jobs and how you can define your cron jobs as well. Just I want to make one note on this particular jobs and cron jobs. Let me just open the official document. So not this one. Let me open the official document. Yes. So if you try to run, let me just open this jobs. Okay. Okay. Let me open this. Scroll down a bit. I just want to explain something called we already know this failure policy and all, so we have already said that. Okay, so and then clean up finishing job automatically. Yeah, so you already know that finished jobs are usually no longer needed in the system, right? So as we all know, like whenever the job has been completed and it is successfully done, there is no longer for us to keep that particular backup in the list actually. Okay, whether it is stored in the etcd as well, there is no need of it, right? So keeping them around the system will put pressure on the API server. Let's say why? Because every time it has to monitor and every time it has to pull the data. So this is like additional burden which is not even necessary for us. It's still even storing that particular information on your Kubernetes cluster. If job are managed directly by your high level control such as cron jobs, the jobs can be cleaned up by the cron jobs based on the specified capacity cleanup policy. So you know that in the cron jobs actually there is some limit. Okay, so let me try to show that cron jobs. If I try to open this, if I scroll down a bit, so I can set some limit. Okay, so limit in the sense how many jobs I can store in the background. Okay, so those parameters we can set in cron jobs, saying that okay, these many backups only should be available in the history. You can see that successful job history limit is equal to 1, which means that it will run for every 2 minutes this particular task, right? So after running 2 minutes, the job has been completed. Again, after 2 minutes, one more job will run, right? And that particular job information to be stored in your API server. Okay. So when it is getting stored, the limit is only one. Only one information should be available of this particular cron job, right? So the old one will get deleted and the new one will get added. Okay. So that's how it is. If you say like three three jobs information will get stored under this particular cron job, which means that last three jobs whatever they have run, those informations will be available. When the fourth job is getting triggered, the old one will get deleted and this fourth one will get added into this history. Okay, so this is how we can control it. Okay, so that is what we are trying to talk about now. If you want to remove it, okay, if you want to remove it like TTL seconds after finishment, okay, so you can just add this particular parameter. Actually, another way to clean up the finishing jobs automatically is used to TTL mechanism provided by a TTL controller. This is a beta version which is added in 1.21, so where you can add it after that TTL, what do you say, the parameter which was added, right, in seconds. So after that particular seconds, this job will get deleted automatically. Okay, so if you want this particular mechanism, you have to add this particular parameter in your what do you say, YAML file or the existing job whatever you have. Okay, so if the field is set to 0, the job will be eligible to be automatically deleted immediately after it finishes. Okay, so once this is finished, immediately if you want to delete this particular job, okay, then you can add a parameter called 0 itself. So what will happen, immediately it will wait, it will delete without waiting for a certain seconds and period of time actually. If you want to place it for certain amount of time after the job has been completed, then we have to put that particular seconds actually. Okay, so you have to calculate in minutes and you have to convert that into seconds and you have to put it here. If it is hours, convert that into seconds and add that particular value over here. After that particular TTL, this particular job will get deleted automatically. Okay, so this is what I just want to explain about this particular job. And one more thing is nothing but suspend a job. This is a new feature which was added in 1.22 version. Okay, so in Kubernetes, what is the intention of using this suspending a job is nothing but when a job is created, job control will immediately being created pod to satisfy the job's requirement and will continue to do until the job is completed. So what do you know? I created a job YAML file, right? So I create a job YAML file and that particular job will try to create a pod immediately when I try to create a job. That's what we have seen yesterday, right? So I want to suspend it and I want to make this particular job to start at certain time, maybe after 10 seconds, or right now I want to suspend it. It should not run immediately. Okay, if you don't want this particular job to run immediately, then we have to add a parameter called suspend is equal to true. Okay, so you have to add a parameter called suspend is equal to true. Okay, so that is a parameter which you have to add. Okay, so that's how it is. That's a parameter which I just want to explain about this jobs. Okay, so this jobs and cron jobs are done. So let us try to understand about authentication and authorization, which is really important for us. Okay, so authentication.
Sudhir,
Yeah.
one question here. So if I suspend the job, it will not execute immediately. But
No.
if we want to execute that job, then I have to change that parameter in the
Yes, you
dynamic
have to
object.
apply the patch. Means to remove that particular parameter, you can just open through kubectl get edit command, or you can run
Mhm.
kubectl patch command in order to remove that parameter. Okay,
Okay, okay,
then the job
fine.
will run immediately. Okay,
Mhm. Okay, fine.
and after the job has been completed, if you want to delete that, then you need to add another parameter to delete it immediately. TTL value. Okay.
Okay.
So now let us understand what is this authentication and authorization. Okay. So in order to explain this authentication and authorization, let me open one slide. Um, I'll just try to open one slide. Okay. So let's try to understand this slideshow from current slide. Okay. So now if you look at this, right? This is the whole picture of your API server, what it does in the background. Okay, so what it is trying to do is nothing but when you execute some command, whether you are executing the command from your dashboard or when you're executing from your what do you say from the GUI dashboard or GUI or from the CLI or from the API call, like if you're trying to run some API call directly, that API header will be ATT header will pass information to the Kube API server, right? Once the information has been received by your Kube API server, what it will do first thing is nothing but it will authenticate first. It will verify the authentication, which means that whoever is trying to communicate to my Kubernetes cluster, it will verify whether the user is a valid user or not in order to log into my Kubernetes cluster. That's the first thing what Kubernetes will try to do in the API server. Authentication in the sense, what kind of authentication will it do? I'm not passing any password, right? Not only username password based authentication, we have certificate based authentication and we have token based authentication as well. Okay, if you want to integrate some third-party tools as well, we can integrate. But these are the three major types of authentications we have in Kubernetes: username password based authentication, key based certificate based authentication, and then token based authentication. Okay, so once that authentication was verified, let's say like Kubernetes has validated that yes, you are allowed to log into my cluster, then what is the next phase? What it does exactly? Then it will do authorization. So authorization in the sense, if you can see in this particular section, authentication and authorization. So authorization in the sense, it will verify whether this user is having what kind of resources he can access in my cluster. Or resource in the sense objects, what kind of objects he can access and what kind of actions he can perform on that particular object. Okay, let's say I created some user, he is allowed only to create the pods, but he cannot delete the pods. Okay, if I specify that, it will verify that particular schema of this particular user, and it will tell whether this user is allowed to delete the pod. Let's say you given the command called kubectl delete pod and the pod name. It will verify the authorization and it will see whether you are allowed to execute that command or not. So once you are allowed to execute that command, okay, it will say like yes, you are allowed, and it will go to the next phase. If you are not allowed, it will reject here itself. It will give you a forbidden error 403. Okay, 403 forbidden error. That's how you get it. We will see later, but that is error which you will see when you try to execute some command which is not allowed, which is called as authorization. So in this authorization, Kubernetes is providing its own authorization mechanism called rollback access control. Okay, RBAC. RBAC in the sense rollback access control. That is the authorization mechanism what Kubernetes is providing you. More, we can add more functionalities for the to the workflow of your API server, like mutation admission controller and validation admission controller. This is out of syllabus actually. It is like a vast syllabus to explain this. Okay, which means that you can even validate your what you are trying to create actually. Okay, that also can be done. And mutation in the sense, even you can modify when you're not specifying some parameters. Let's say, sorry, let's say I want to create some pod, I missed some parameters here. Automatically this mutation admission controller will try to add that to your what do you say, the YAML what you are trying to create. Okay, so that has the mechanism called mutation admission controller. For that you have to integrate your webhook to validate that. So that is called as mutation admission and validation admission. So this is like out of syllabus. So let us say that we don't have this one, we have not enabled this. What is the next phase? Authentication and authorization. Once it is done, it will go to the object schema validation. So object schema validation in the sense, it will verify all the parameters what you have written in a correct order and all the parameters are written properly or not. That is called as object schema validation. Whatever the object you try to create, whether it is a pod or a deployment or daemon set, any workload, it's up to you. Config map, secrets, PV, PVC, any object you are trying to create on Kubernetes cluster. So it will validate the schema what you have written. Based on that particular, it will validate and it will say, okay, minimum required parameters are written or not. That's how sometimes if you seems miss some parameter, or if you don't give a proper indentation, right, it will reject. Okay, so that's where it will validate in the object schema validation stage. Once this object schema validation is done, then it will go and it will store the details in the etcd. Okay, so this is the workflow what will happen in the background when you try to create something on your Kubernetes cluster. Now the main concentration is on our authentication and authorization. So authentication, you know, now we have username password based authentication, certificate based authentication and token based authentication which is supported. And authorization, we have ABAC, RBAC, there are so many other things, but RBAC is the policy which will be used by default in order to authorize your Kubernetes cluster. We have node restriction as well. There are so many things actually, but right now we are using RBAC policy in order to apply to your users in order to authorize to your Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so that is the thing which I want to explain. Now let us try to see what are the mechanisms, like what are the ways that we can use in order to authenticate. Right now let us try to validate now how you are currently or authenticating to your Kubernetes cluster. How I am able to execute the command, how the authentication and authorization is done. Okay, so first of all let me show you whether authentication authorization is enabled in your Kubernetes cluster or not. For that you can go to your manifest file of your API server, or else you can verify the running process. Okay, PSAUX, it will print all the process IDs which are running in the background, and then grep, I want to print API server. Now if you look at this closely, this is the command which is running in the background, okay, for your API server. These are so many arguments are there in order to run in the background. So right now our concentration is what is your authorization mode. You can see here your authorization mode is node and RBAC. Okay, so RBAC. Okay, so which is nothing but RBAC is by default enabled in your Kubernetes cluster, any Kubernetes cluster, right? Which is nothing but rollback access control. Okay, what is that, how, what are the things we have, and everything we will discuss. So right now let us not concentrate too much on this authorization right now. First of all, we have to understand what is authentication, what are the types of authentication we have, and then we will talk about this authorization as well. Okay, so in the authentication process we have so many authentication processes which I have already told, right? Username, password based authentication, token based authentication, and then certificate based authentication. If you have ever observed your config file, I told you, right, by default when you execute kubeadm init command, at the last it is generating some particular output. In the output it is clearly mentioned like you have to execute some commands in order to copy the config file which is present by default under Kubernetes admin.conf. This is the file. So this file you are trying to copy under this particular directory, kubeconf, this particular directory. So why we are trying to do like this? Because by default when you execute kubectl command, by default it will pick from this particular location. Okay, so that's the reason we are trying to say this. If you don't want to place this particular file in this location, every time you have to execute export command and you have to replace the value, which means that you have to tell where is your path by setting some environment variable. So kube config, and you have to specify the path where it is stored. Okay, that's where we can solve one of the problem if it is not stored in the default location. Every time instead of executing this command, you can store this particular command in the file called bash rc file. Okay, you can store the information in the bash rc file where it will store your whenever the terminal is getting loaded, right, it will try to execute all the commands which are written in this particular file. Okay, so what you can do, you can store your export command kubeconfig is equal to that particular path command in this particular file bash rc file. Okay, that will solve your problem instead of executing this command each and every time. Okay, so this is the basic way of understanding your config file. Now what is the information stored in this particular config file? That is really important for us. So now if you try to cat this particular file, cube config, so it has a lot of information like API server is v1, cluster related information, which means that what is the certificate of the cluster and where is the server, okay, the URL, okay, and what are the section you have written under this. For this they have assigned some name which is called as Kubernetes. Okay, you can see for this particular section what they have written, they have given some name called Kubernetes. Okay, this is the name of this particular section. Why they have written like this? Because tomorrow if you want to add another section as well, you can add. For that section also you have to assign some name, right? Every section will be identified with that particular name. Okay, so that's the reason they have added like this. So we can add multiple sections of clusters over here, which means that tomorrow I have another new cluster which I have created. Instead of having two configuration files, you can add those details into the single configuration file. You need to add that particular cluster related CA certificate information, and you have to add the server URL, and then you need to give some name to that particular section what you have added. Let's say Sudhir demo, something like that. Okay, now to whichever cluster you want, what is the benefit of that? To whichever cluster you want, you can communicate. Whenever you execute some kubectl command, it will communicate to that particular server. Okay, so how to enable that and how to switch from one cluster to another cluster, let us see. But right now this is what we have by default. Okay, and then let us come to this particular section and then I will talk about this context. Okay, the next section is about users. User in the sense, he is the user who is having this particular certificate and he is having this particular key. So he is using this particular certificate and key which is signed by your Kubernetes certificate. Who has signed this particular certificate is allowed to authenticate to my Kubernetes cluster using his client certificates actually. Okay, so that's how it is. So this user is using his key and certificate in order to authenticate to my Kubernetes cluster. That user section is written here. Tomorrow if you have another user, you have to add that particular section here. Okay, now this user wants to communicate to this particular server, or this user wants to communicate to another server. Those details you will specify under context. Okay, context is a section where you will define which user wants to communicate to which cluster. Okay, so you can see here one of the context is already written here. You can see this user called kubernetes-admin is trying to communicate to their cluster called Kubernetes. You can see this. Okay, so for this context what we have written, we have given some name. Okay, if why? Because tomorrow if I have this user wants to communicate to a different cluster, then I need to add that particular context as well. Okay, so this context will help you from switching from one context to another context before executing the command. In CKA or any exam, Kubernetes exam, you write, right, CKA or CKAD or CKS, they'll ask you the first thing what you need to do. First you have to execute the context command in order to switch from one cluster to another cluster. Okay, so how you will able to switch from one cluster to another cluster? Because all the cluster related information will be stored in the config file. You have to switch from one cluster to another cluster. That will be done already. You have to execute some command to switch from one cluster to another cluster. I'll show you how to switch, but this is the section where it will define which user wants to communicate to which cluster. Okay, and now currently which one is enabled right now? I need to know which cluster is enabled, which context is enabled right now. Let's say there are so many contexts which are written with the different combinations actually. Let's say I have 5 users and I have 3 clusters actually. These 5 users with 3 clusters, they can write like 15 combinations actually of context here. Okay, 15 combinations of context I can write over here. After that I want to switch from this between this particular 15 context. If I want to switch, okay, you can switch through the CLI. Currently if you want to know from the config file, if I want to know which context is enabled right now, you can go and you can verify under this particular section. Now the current context is kubernetes-admin@kubernetes. This is what enabled right now. So what are the commands I am executing? It is executing with this particular context. So this user is communicating to this particular cluster. Simple. Okay, so this is how it is written. So the kind is config, preferences nothing, actually nothing is needed right now. So this is the entire information which is stored in the config file. Okay, now this file is used for us to authenticate to your Kubernetes cluster. That's what we are trying to do. Sorry, that's how it is, right? So that's the reason why I was able to execute the commands without any issue. Now if you can see that particular file using the CLI as well, kubectl config, okay, view. If you execute this command, you don't see the information of this particular authority data, CA certificate and the client CA and client key information. If you want to see that as well, we have to give some raw. Okay, you can give like this. Okay, even you can add a argument called -f raw. That information also will be shown. Okay, so now I want to see the context, how many contexts through the CLI. So kubectl config. Okay, if you want to add so many parameters, you can add. See, current context, delete cluster, delete context, delete user, get clusters, get context, get users, rename context, set cluster, context, credentials. These are nothing but to add into the file. Automatically it will add into the configuration file. We will see later. Unset use context view. Okay, so now if I give config, okay, get context, you can see currently this is the context and he is trying to communicate to this particular cluster, and this is the user who is trying to communicate to this particular cluster. And you can see a star symbol in the sense this is the current context which is enabled right now. Since you don't have any other context right now, you are not able to understand is that really a star mark added to this particular line or for all the lines. So let us try to add more context related information, whether it is username password based authentication or certificate based authentication or token based authentication. Let us try to add into this particular configuration file. So first I want to create a user. For that user, I want to generate some particular certificates in order to authenticate to my Kubernetes cluster. And that certificate should be signed by your Kubernetes API certificates. Okay, so that's the thing which you have to remember. And once the certificates have been signed by your Kubernetes API server, now after that I need to add the details in my config file. Okay, so all the things we will do from CLI commands itself. We don't go and manually add in the configuration file. So let us see. So let us be so simple and let us try to do it. Limit access. Okay, so now here you can see I'm trying to create a user called Sudhir. I'm trying to create a namespace called Sudhir. Why? Because I want to create a user and that user should access only a namespace called Sudhir. That's it. If he is trying to access any other namespace, it should reject. That's the intention actually. Okay. So now RBAC using user certificate. Okay. So that is what we are trying to do right now. Not RBAC actually. Right now it is just an authentication. Okay. So let us execute the command one by one. So take this. Okay, and then paste it here. So we are trying to create a namespace called Sudhir, right? It is successfully created. Now after that I'm trying to generate a key. After that I'm trying to generate a CSR, certificate signing request. So in the certificate signing request, I have to tell in the subject that what is your username. So where is my username defined? Username is defined in the CL, canonical name, and he is the organization, in the sense he is the group. Okay, he is the user and this is the group. Okay, so that is what you have to remember. Okay, so now let us generate a certificate right now. Sorry, let us generate a key first. So let me write like search. Okay, let me try to store over there. I'll go to the search directory and let me execute the command. Okay, employee is the name of that particular file. Okay, you can see this key. Okay, now let us execute another command in order to generate the CSR. If you don't give the subject, it will prompt you to give each and every information. So here important information is nothing but you are trying to generate a CSR using this particular key. Okay, input as a key, and you are trying to generate a file called employee.csr, and with for this user called employee and the group called Sudhir. Okay, just execute. Now this particular CSR has been generated. Using the CSR, now we will generate a certificate. This is a self-signed certificate. It is not actually a valid certificate. It is generated by our own. And this certificate is should be signed by your Kubernetes API server. Without signing that, you cannot authenticate. Okay. How it will sign my certificate? Let me show you that. So now we are generating a client certificate, right? This client certificate should be signed by your Kubernetes API server. Okay, you can see here. Where is your certificate? See, this is your client certificate which will generate as an output. Expiry is like 500 days. After 500 days, it will expire, which is more than enough for us. And you can see here, expire is a request. Input is nothing but your CSR certificate. Okay, after that, you have to give the location of your Kubernetes certificate. Okay, why? Because it is signed. Your client certificate is validated by your Kubernetes admin certificates. Like you can call it as like API certificates. Okay, so it is under /etc Kubernetes Kubernetes/PKI. Okay, it is under this particular location, and here also I need to give the location /etc/Kubernetes/PKI. Okay, so this is the command. First of all, let me show that without executing it. /etc Kubernetes PKI. You can see the certificates ca.cert and ca.key. Okay, for other services also we have a certificates. This is the main certificates of your cluster. This is the certificate which is used in order to generate your certificate. So these certificates are signing your client certificate, saying that okay, these certificates are valid, I am approving it. So once it is approved, right, tomorrow you can use this particular client certificates in order to communicate to your Kubernetes cluster. It will accept. Why? Because that is a server who has signed your certificates, so obviously it will accept you. Okay, so that's the reason we are doing like this. So now let me copy paste this and generate the certificate. Okay. Oh, sorry, what happened? It is not copied properly. Let me do it. Okay, let me try to re-execute this. -days 500. Okay, it is not copied properly. That's okay. Now you can see a certificate has been generated. So you can see the output. Now you can remove your CSR. Now it is not needed. Okay, it's up to you whether you want to remove or not. I'll remove this. Okay, because it is not needed for me. I don't want to store this. Okay, now we have your key and your certificate. Okay, so using these two files, I will try to store my information in the config file. So do you really need to add your user and go manually add the entries in the config file? No, you can do it from CLI itself. No need to open this particular file called .cube and the config. No need to add this particular file actually. Okay, you can directly just, okay, no need to open and go to the bottom of the file and add it and properly place it, indentations and all. No need to do worry about this right now. You can do it from CLI itself. So how to do it from CLI? First of all, I need to add the credentials details. Credentials are nothing but user details, right? So in order to add the user details, this is the command which you have to execute. Okay, so take this command and execute. Okay, you can see here. So set credentials, in the sense I told you, right, set is related to adding the entries in the file. So now set credentials are nothing but user related entries in the file, and this is the name of that particular entry section what you are writing, updating in the file, and this is the client certificate, and this is the client key. Okay, which is already there in the same location. Now if you try to execute the command kubectl config view view, yeah, now you can see your details have been added successfully from the CLI itself. Okay, so this is one thing you have to remember. Now it is not hard coded, which is nothing but it is saying the location of the file, your certificate file and key file. Instead of having the information in the file itself, it is kind of setting the path, which is the better option. Okay, now after this entries have been added, now I need to add a context. Server, it is not needed. Why? Because I'm trying to communicate to the same server. So no need to do any modifications or no need to add a new entries in this particular section, cluster section. Why? Because I'm trying to communicate to the same cluster called Kubernetes, right? So these particular details I need to add under context, saying that this user wants to communicate to this particular cluster. Okay, so I need to add a new context. So how to add it? You can see the example over here. So take this and go here and just execute this command. So the user related information is employee. So that is what I have written here. Okay, and then namespace is nothing but Sudhir. Why? Because I want to communicate only to the Sudhir namespace. If you want to communicate to all the namespaces, no need to add this entry. Okay, and then cluster is Kubernetes. You can see here, and this is the entry information. Actually, employee hyphen context is the name of this particular context which is getting added. Okay, enter. Now
So
this is,
I have a question here.
yes, please.
Yeah, in the previous command,
Okay,
just what you executed now. Yeah, this one.
this one.
No,
Okay,
this one. Yeah. So no,
this
you
command.
just executed the command. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. So there is a namespace option. So
yes,
I think this is the option for the current namespace. Means
no,
when this user execute the command, it will get this namespace by default.
yes, exactly,
No.
exactly.
It is not related to that. Okay, this user has only accessibility only for this namespace. We will define it in role or role binding.
We will
Right?
define it. We will define in the RBAC as well. It is better to specify here as well so that we can understand you are eligible only to access this particular namespace. So that's the reason why I'm adding this particular namespace is equal to Sudhir here. And what you said is correct actually. By default, when you try to execute kubectl get nodes or sorry get pods and all, right? Generally for this particular user, what it is trying to give for this particular context, by default it is getting from default namespace. Is it added here? No, right?
No.
No, but still why it is fetching only the information from here? Because it is added in the RBAC. Okay. So there is a lot of difference actually. So here I am explicitly saying that this particular user should get that information by default. Means if you don't pass any namespace, you should get the information from this particular namespace. Okay. Yeah. So what you said is correct. And the RBAC is something where you will control it. Control saying that this user should not go beyond this particular namespace. That's where you will restrict it. Saying that you will either create a cluster role binding we cannot create. Why? Because it is whole cluster, right? Then we have to create a role and role binding. Then you will try to apply to this particular user. Okay, we'll see that in the particular section, but here it is nothing but you are restricting your kubectl to fetch the information by default from this particular namespace. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
so once this is done, you can see now the context has been added here. Okay, so Sudhir user, sorry, employee user is trying to communicate to the cluster called Kubernetes. By default namespace is Sudhir, and this is the section name I have assigned. Okay, so now if I execute kubectl get, sorry, kubectl config, okay, get hyphen context. Now you can see here there is no star mark over there, which means that this is not your current context which is enabled. Okay, your current context is this. Now if I switch from this particular context to this, let's see what happens. kubectl config, okay, use hyphen context, okay, and the name of the context employee hyphen context. Okay, now I have switched. If you want, you can see the further confirmation. Okay, so now if I execute a command kubectl get pods, it will give you a forbidden. Why? Because your authentication is done, but you are not authorized to fetch the information related to pods. Why? Because I have not set any RBAC policy to this particular user. Okay, so I have not set any RBAC policy to this particular user right now. So that's the reason, though he is able to authenticate. How I can say he is authenticated successfully? Because I didn't got any what do you say, unauthorized error. If I get unauthorized error, that is called as what do you say, that is called as authentication issue. But here it is not authentication issue, here is like authorization issue. Okay, so authentication issue which will already which will tell you that unauthorized, that is output which you get from as an error. Okay, so that's one thing you have to remember. It's not like forbidden, it's like unauthorized. If it is authentication related issue, my authentication is successful, I have a valid user. For that user is he is having a valid certificates which is signed by your Kubernetes. So that's the reason I was able to authenticate successfully. But when I'm trying to fetch the details of my pod related information in Sudhi namespace, it is rejecting it. Okay, so that's one thing we have to remember. Okay, so next let us see how to add a RBAC policy to this particular user. Then I will explain one example related to token based authentication. Okay, so before knowing about token based authentication, first of all, now I need to fix the issue. For this user, he need to allow we need to allow the access to this particular user to create pod, edit pod and all, but he cannot delete the pods in the Sudhi namespace. Rest of the namespace he should not at all access. So if I want to apply that particular things, first of all we need to know about RBAC policy. Okay, so let me explain about the RBAC policy. um, okay, so did I created some diagram related to it to explain RBAC. Okay, nothing has been created. Okay, I'll create yeah, before that let me try to explain in the paint itself. Now RBAC policy, which we are trying to run in Kubernetes cluster. So RBAC, in the sense, what is the abbreviation of this? Rollback access control. Okay, rollback access control. This is the abbreviation of this. Now, rollback access control, in the sense, what are the things we have? Okay, what kind of roles you are trying to assign? So we have different types of roles here. One is role, normal role, which you will try to assign. This is namespace wide, namespace specific. Okay, which means that every namespace you have to, if you want to apply a role to a specific namespace, then we have to use role. Okay, then we have cluster role. Cluster role. So cluster role is for entire cluster. The role which will be applied for your entire cluster. It is not specific to your namespace. Okay, if you apply this particular role, this role will be applied to the entire cluster itself. That is called as cluster role. Now I want to bind a user to with a role. Okay, I want to bind a user with a role, or a group with a role, or a service account with a role. Okay, these are the different types of what do you say, users I can assign a role. To assign that particular role, where you will define, you will write a role binding. If it is a role, you will write a role binding. Okay, or else we have a cluster role binding. Okay, this is what it is. So we have a role binding or cluster role binding. So this is the point where you will specify which user should have which role. That's where we will try to define not only user, group and service account. Okay, why? Because we are using token based authentication, right? For username password based authentication, we use user section. For certificate based authentication also, we use user section itself, user or a group. Okay, for a password based authentication, we use user as well. Okay, only for token based authentication we write a service account. Why? Because your token will be generated from a service account actually. Okay, let us forget that about right now. Tomorrow we can discuss about that. So right now we are trying to apply this role binding to a user. Okay, why? Because it is a role namespace specific. Okay, since I want to apply a role to a namespace called Sudhir. Okay, why? Because user is having, should have access only to that particular Sudhir namespace, not to the entire cluster. Okay, if you want to apply a role to the entire cluster, then we have to use a cluster role. You have to define what you want to do. So in the roles, what we will specify? Okay, in the roles we will specify what actions you can perform. Okay, let me try to explain that. So we have actions, what you can perform. So these actions are called as verbs, which is also called as verbs in the YAML file which you write. Okay, technically this is the actual meaning. Actions is nothing but a small understandable word. Actions. What are the actions we can perform? Get, okay, list, okay, delete, okay, update, okay, view, okay, and then create, okay, and then patch, etc. Like if you have more. Okay, so these are actions. Okay, every action has a certain meaning, right? If you want to delete that particular object, the action is called as delete. Okay, if you want to update some changes, let's say kubectl edit command, when you're executing that, that is nothing but update. Okay, so if you want to do like that, we have to have an action called you. This role should be created with that particular action. If you want to apply, instead of writing these parameters all together, if you want to write, if you want to apply all the verbs, then we have to give something like, inside the bracket we need to write star symbol, which means that all the actions are allowed. Okay, if you don't want to take the headache, you can write like this, which means that all the actions are allowed. Okay, that's one thing we have to remember. Okay, so this is the main important parameter in your verbs. And then resources, to which resources you have to apply this particular verbs, means the actions. Let's say pods, okay, workloads like your daemon set deployment, everything, and the config maps, secrets, etc. There are so many objects, right, which you can create in Kubernetes cluster. For every object you can specify which resource, to which resource what actions you want to perform. Okay, these things will be defined in your role and cluster. Okay, so that's one thing we have to remember. Role binding is something where you will try to assign. Let me show one example. Where is it? You can see this role binding. This is where you will specify subject in the sense, let me tell you. Okay, you will define to whom we need to apply this. Okay, so subject is something where to whom you will try to apply. Okay, okay, to whom, which user or a group, okay, or a service account you want to apply, account you want to apply this. Okay, that is defined in the subject. Once you define there which user and all, you will specify the name here. In our case we will specify name is nothing but not here, you will specify Sudhir, user actually, and here I will specify the name called employee. That is the name, right? In which namespace? Sudhir namespace. That's it. Okay, you can see when you are trying to define your role binding, you are specifying namespace as well. Okay, but when you are specifying your cluster role, you will not specify this parameter. Why? Because it is for the whole cluster. Okay, and you can see the actions over here which I've updated, and to which resources, and what is the API group for that. Okay, if it is a different API group, I have specified in a separate section for jobs and cron jobs. All the actions are performed. All the actions in the sense he can do, he can delete the job, he can create the job, he can update the job, everything he can do it. Okay, but here he can list the pods, he can create the pods, he can get the pods. Not only pods, deployments and config maps. Okay, so in this way we can control our user to access our cluster. Okay, so in the subject we'll define that, and a role will be assigned under role reference section. Okay, which role should be applied, which role to be assigned to the user. Okay, so that is what we will define in the this particular section. Okay, so this is a whole picture of your RBAC, rollback access control. So you'll have role and cluster role where you will define which resources should have what actions. Okay, this is the main file which talks about which resources will have what actions to perform, so that when you assign this particular role to the user, he can perform the actions what you have defined in this particular role. Okay, role or cluster role, whatever it is. Okay, the basic difference is role is specific to your namespace, cluster role is for your entire cluster. Okay, and in the role and binding and the cluster role binding, you will define which user should have which role. That is what you will define, not only user, group and service accounts. These are the three different subjects that we can define. For a user you can assign a role, for a group you can assign a role, for service account also you can assign a role. Okay, so based on that they can access your cluster. Okay, now I will create a sample role and role binding. Okay, so limit access. So here I will take some example of it. Okay, so I'll take this example. Okay, let me copy this and let me explain for you. Okay, so now role binding. Spelling mistake. Employee user. Okay, just I gave a name like that so that I can understand. So here you can see, let me open in Nano Editor. You can see here the kind is, I have written both the sections in a single YAML file. Okay, role and role binding. So here is the role. The API version is rbac.authorization.k8s.io/v1. In the older version it is rbac.authorization.k8s./v1 beta 1 it is. Okay, now it is generally available, so no beta version, nothing. Okay, and this is the name I have assigned to namespace where I want to create this particular role. you can say a deployment manager. That's what I have assigned some name. Okay. So what is the API groups he can access? Here you don't see anything in the sense it is for V1. Okay, for all of them. Extensions in the sense, why? Because if you want to extensions API groups as well to serve, then you can write this extensions as well. Apps in the sense, if your pods are created through a deployment, a daemon set and all, it will use this API groups called apps v1. Okay, so that's the reason I'm using a group called API group called apps, and then extensions. Okay, why extensions? Because if your pods are created through jobs and cron jobs or any other thing, then it will use extension as a API group. So which resource I want to give an access? Pods. In the pods, what he can do? He can get the pods, he can list the pods, he can watch the pods, he can create the pods, he can update the pods, he can patch the pods, but he cannot delete. Okay, so that is what I have defined. Okay, if you want to write another section, you can just write it, but I have written only one section related to pod, and these are the actions which I want to perform. Okay, now I want to assign this particular role to my user called employee, which I have created earlier. So that will be defined. You can see here role binding, this is the name, and this is the namespace where I want to create this particular role binding, and the subject is user. We can also define group or a service account. For this user called kind called user, I am assigning a name called employee, and this is the API group. Okay, and then this particular role which I'm trying to assign. That's it, as simple as it is. Okay, once you define this, now I need to apply. So kubectl create role. It will fail. Why? Because I logged in as different context, not as an admin context, right? So I have to switch kubectl config, or I can use, let's say while creating it, I can use hyphen context. Okay, equal to, I can use this. Okay, you can see it created successfully. Okay, even you can do like this as well. Okay, now let me try to fetch the pod details. You can see now it is successful, which means that your authentication and authorization is also successful. But let me try to, you can see by default it is fetching the data from Sudhi namespace. But if I try to fetch the data from default namespace, see what happens. It is forbidden because you don't have permission to access, go and fetch the data related to a default namespace or any other namespace. Okay, if I try to fetch the, instead of pods, let's say I want to fetch the config map, it doesn't. Secrets, no, nothing is allowed. Only except pod, you cannot access anything. Okay, so this is how you can apply your RBAC to a user. Okay, which is a user is created with certificate based authentication. Okay, so tomorrow we will see a token based authentication, then we can talk about username password based authentication as well. Okay, so these are the three types of authentication mechanisms which we have. RBAC is same, whatever you try to apply. So tomorrow we will discuss about cluster role and cluster role binding as well. Okay, even you can assign a role binding to a sorry, even you can apply a role to a cluster role binding, that also can be defined. Okay, we will see tomorrow how to do that. Okay, thank you. I'll stop here itself. I will not modify anything or I will not delete anything actually, so that we can continue from here. Okay.